Have you ever met someone who pulls away just when things start to feel real? They smile, they care, but the moment you get too close, they vanish into silence. It's not that they don't feel love. It's that love, to them, feels like walking into fire while trying not to burn. When an avoidant person treats someone as just an option, their entire emotional framework operates from a place of control and self-protection. They have learned, often unconsciously, that closeness is dangerous, that being vulnerable means risking rejection, disappointment, or emotional engulfment. So when someone enters their life casually, their mind instantly organizes the relationship into something manageable, something that doesn't demand too much of them. They become skilled at maintaining a polite level of warmth while keeping their emotional walls intact. Their detachment is not always cold or cruel. It is strategic, born from the need to remain safe within themselves. They might appear attentive for short moments, even flirtatious, but there is always a ceiling to their openness. Their interest doesn't extend into true emotional intimacy. They give just enough to keep things going while ensuring they never lose the upper hand. However, everything changes when they encounter someone they truly love. Suddenly, the emotional distance that once protected them becomes a prison. Love brings chaos to their carefully structured inner world. The same instincts that once kept them safe now work against them, pushing away the very person they long to be close to. This inner conflict is not visible on the surface, but it is deeply felt. They want to connect, but the closer they get, the more their body and mind resist. Their fear of being consumed or abandoned grows louder with every act of genuine affection they receive. This is why avoidance can seem confusing, warm one moment, distant the next. Their emotions are in constant battle with their conditioning. When you are just an option, they will keep conversations light, interactions short, and commitment vague. They won't let you into their private world. You will notice a lack of emotional consistency. They might take days to reply, cancel plans, or seem preoccupied with their independence. They do this because casual connections do not threaten their sense of control. They can engage or withdraw without consequence. But when they love someone, that same distance begins to hurt them too. They start feeling anxious in their own silence, restless when they ignore your message, guilty when they push you away. The irony is that love exposes their vulnerability, and with that vulnerability comes fear. Fear of needing someone, fear of being seen fully, fear of being left. The avoidance detachment in love is not a lack of emotion. It is the overflow of emotion they don't know how to regulate. They have spent years avoiding dependency, so the realization that they care deeply feels like losing balance. They start to analyze every move, every word, because love makes them feel out of control. Their instinct is to retreat, to create space to breathe, yet that same space feels unbearable. This creates the push-pull dynamic many partners of avoidance experience, moments of closeness followed by sudden withdrawal. The person they love may misinterpret this as rejection, but in truth it is self-preservation in motion. Over time, the avoidant may begin to see that detachment doesn't protect them from pain. It isolates them from what they crave most, emotional connection. Love forces them to face the limits of their old strategies. Their emotional armor starts to crack. They may feel a quiet shame for their inability to stay present or express affection easily. But this is where transformation begins. When they are with someone they truly love, the mask of control loses its power. They are forced to confront the parts of themselves that once hid behind independence and self-sufficiency. In essence, when you are just an option, the avoidant moves through the relationship like a spectator. But when you are the one they love, they become both the participant and the battleground. Every word, every gesture, every silence carries meaning. Love no longer feels like a comfort but a challenge, a mirror that reflects everything they have spent years avoiding within themselves. control is the heartbeat of the avoidance world. From a young age, they learn that closeness often brings chaos, unpredictability, or emotional pain. To feel safe, they build invisible systems of control, routines, mental distance, emotional self-sufficiency, all designed to ensure that no one can unsettle their inner balance. When they engage with someone who is merely an option, this control feels easy to maintain. They dictate the rhythm of communication, the depth of conversation, and the emotional temperature of the connection. They prefer surface-level interactions that do not threaten their autonomy. Every gesture, every reply, every plan is subtly managed to keep their sense of independence intact. They may appear calm, even charming, but there is always a quiet calculation beneath the surface. They control the pace so they never feel trapped. When they are dealing with someone they truly love, however, this control begins to unravel. Love introduces a new kind of vulnerability, one they cannot predict, measure, or contain. Suddenly, emotions arise that do not obey their rules. They find themselves thinking about the person constantly, missing them when they are gone, feeling uneasy when they cannot maintain emotional distance. This loss of control feels threatening because it shakes the foundation they have built their identity upon. The avoidant has long equated independence with safety. Now, love challenges that belief. They start oscillating between wanting to be close and needing to pull away. This creates confusion not only for their partner but also for themselves. With someone who is just an option, avoidants control through absence. They use silence, busyness, or detachment as tools to maintain power in the relationship. They may text when convenient, engage when it benefits them, and withdraw when things get too emotional. They are never fully in, never fully out. The person becomes a background figure in their life, someone who provides attention or validation without demanding real vulnerability. The dynamic is safe because the avoidant knows they can end it at any moment without emotional consequence. Control here is effortless, and emotional distance feels like strength, but love shifts everything. With the one they truly care for, the avoidant starts to lose grip over this system of emotional management. They begin to care about how their actions affect the other person, and that awareness becomes uncomfortable. They can no longer retreat into complete silence without feeling guilt or regret. They notice the pain in their partner's eyes when they pull away, and though they may still retreat, it no longer feels satisfying. The power dynamic flips. What once gave them control now exposes their inner conflict. They want to feel close but fear the loss of their autonomy. They crave safety but also connection. This paradox is the emotional storm that defines an avoidant in love. Their behavior becomes unpredictable, not because they are manipulative, but because they are torn between two instincts that cannot coexist. When they sense things getting too intimate, they might suddenly withdraw, convinced they need space to regain balance. Yet once they pull back, loneliness creeps in, and they begin to miss the warmth they've pushed away. This push-pull cycle becomes their way of maintaining partial control while still keeping love within reach. To their partner, it may feel like inconsistency. To them, it feels like survival. In casual relationships, control is external, about managing circumstances and people. In real love, control becomes internal, about managing their own emotions, which often feel too big and too raw. They might intellectualize their feelings, rationalize distance, or disguise affection as indifference. But beneath that calm surface lies deep confusion. They are trying to hold on to themselves while giving part of their heart to someone else. Love exposes the fragility behind their self-protection. It shows them that control was never real safety, only an illusion built to avoid the fear of being hurt. When they truly love someone, the old methods no longer work. The distance that once made them feel powerful now feels like a barrier to the connection they secretly desire most. For the avoidant, dependence has always carried the weight of danger. It represents the possibility of being let down, misunderstood, or controlled by another person's emotions. Many avoidants grew up in environments where needing someone was met with disappointment or rejection, so they learned to equate self-reliance with survival. They built an identity around independence, believing that the less they rely on others, the less they can be hurt. When they interact with someone who is just an option, this belief system remains unchallenged. They keep emotional exchanges limited and functional. They share surface-level details of their life, but rarely reveal their deeper thoughts, insecurities, or desires. Their emotional world stays locked behind a wall of composure. Dependence, even in the smallest sense, feels unnecessary and risky. They maintain the upper hand by never truly needing the other person. This self-sufficiency can make them appear confident, mysterious, and even strong to casual partners. They seem unbothered, capable of walking away at any time. The truth, however, is that this emotional distance is not strength but defense. It's a learned behavior, a way of ensuring they never have to confront the ache of disappointment that once shaped them. They are comfortable in relationships where feelings remain light and controllable. They may enjoy attention, affection, or companionship. But as soon as someone demands vulnerability, they subtly retreat. This is not because they don't care at all. It's because caring deeply would mean risking exposure, risking the return of the helplessness they once felt. When they encounter someone they truly love, everything inside them begins to shift. Love awakens emotions they have long kept buried, and with those emotions comes fear, not just of losing the person, but of losing the illusion of self-sufficiency they've spent years perfecting. Suddenly, the idea of dependence doesn't seem like a choice. It becomes a natural response. They find themselves thinking about the other person constantly, missing them in moments of absence, feeling uneasy when the connection weakens. This new vulnerability feels overwhelming because it defies their inner logic. For the first time, they cannot control what they feel. The walls that once protected them start to tremble, and that instability feels terrifying. In love, the avoidant's fear of dependence shows up in subtle ways. They may withdraw when intimacy deepens, change the subject when emotions surface, or claim they need space just when things feel closest. They do not do this to punish their partner, but to regain emotional equilibrium. The closer they get, the more they fear losing themselves. This tension becomes their silent battle, the need to preserve their autonomy clashing with the longing to be known and accepted. They might even tell themselves they are better off alone, trying to rationalize their retreat. But the truth is that the emotional connection already runs deeper than they are willing to admit. When an avoidant truly loves, their actions often contradict their feelings. They might pull away after moments of closeness, not because the connection means nothing, but because it means too much. Love exposes their hidden dependency, the part of them that wants comfort, reassurance, and emotional safety. It is a part they have denied for so long that its reemergence feels like weakness. They begin to feel trapped between the person they want to be, self-sufficient, untouchable, and the person they are becoming, open, attached, human. This inner struggle can make their love seem inconsistent, but beneath it lies sincerity. Each act of vulnerability costs them something. Every small confession or affectionate gesture feels like a risk. They might show love in quiet, indirect ways, through acts of service, loyalty, or protection, because words and emotions feel too exposing. Yet through this resistance, love begins to soften them. Dependence, once seen as a threat, starts to take on a different meaning. It becomes a sign of trust, a step toward healing the wounds that made them fearful in the first place. When they allow themselves to need someone without shame, even briefly, they experience something they've unconsciously sought all along: connection without fear. Avoidants often struggle with trust because deep down, they believe that emotional safety is temporary and conditional. To them, love has always been a place of uncertainty, where closeness can turn into disappointment without warning. When they engage with someone who is just an option, this underlying fear remains untested. They do not need to reveal themselves or risk rejection because the relationship never reaches the point of emotional depth. They can remain composed, distant, and in control. Their interactions are predictable, and predictability feels like safety. They may appear uninterested or indifferent when someone pulls away because they have already prepared themselves for it. Emotional detachment acts as a preemptive defense. By convincing themselves that they do not need anyone's loyalty, they avoid the pain of realizing how much it actually matters. However, when they meet someone who truly matters to them, the emotional dynamic shifts entirely. Suddenly, the fear of being hurt is no longer theoretical. It becomes real. The more they care, the more they feel the risk of losing that connection. Their instinctive reaction is to test the other person's loyalty and emotional consistency, often without realizing it. They might withdraw emotionally, take longer to respond, or act distant, watching closely how the other person reacts. These are not games of manipulation, but unconscious attempts to measure safety. They want to know, will you chase after me? Will you still care if I pull away? Will you stay when I become difficult to love? These quiet tests often stem from a deep fear of rejection. For avoidants, love is not just about connection. It is a mirror reflecting their deepest insecurities. When someone continues to care for them despite their distance, it begins to challenge their old beliefs about love and trust. They begin to feel seen, not for their performance of strength, but for their hidden fragility. Yet, even as they crave this reassurance, it also terrifies them. If someone proves to be loyal, it means the relationship has weight, and that weight threatens the freedom they've always clung to. Their emotions become conflicted, a push to draw close, a pull to retreat. During these withdrawal phases, an avoidant may seem cold or uninterested, but internally they are flooded with conflicting thoughts. They replay past moments, analyze their partner's responses, and struggle to interpret whether the love they are receiving is safe or conditional. If their partner responds with anger or detachment, it confirms their fears that closeness leads to pain. But if the partner responds with patience and calm presence, it begins to soften their defenses. This is the hidden emotional testing ground where love for an avoidant either deepens or dissolves. The avoidant's way of testing loyalty often involves subtle behaviors rather than direct confrontation. They may become less expressive, reduce communication, or pretend they are fine when they are not. They do this to see if their partner can sense the shift, if the other person will make an effort to reach them beyond the walls they've built. Their silence becomes a language of its own, speaking of insecurity and longing. They are not seeking perfection, but consistency, a sense that someone will not vanish the moment things get emotionally complex. This process can be exhausting for both sides. The partner may feel confused, uncertain about what the avoidant truly wants. But for the avoidant, these tests are the only way they know how to measure love without directly admitting how much they need it. They equate loyalty with safety because loyalty implies endurance, something they have rarely experienced emotionally. Each time their partner stays through the silence or reaches out after the distance, the avoidant begins to internalize a new lesson: that love can exist without losing oneself, that connection does not always lead to betrayal. Over time, these moments of tested loyalty slowly rewire their emotional patterns. They start to see that trust does not have to be blind. It can grow through consistent presence. The more they witness someone choosing to stay, the more they begin to lower their guard, even if just slightly. What begins as a defense mechanism gradually becomes an opportunity for healing. Through these unspoken tests, the avoidant learns something that years of emotional isolation never taught them, that love, when patient, can be the safest place to rest. Love has a way of bringing everything hidden in a person to the surface, and for the avoidant, this experience is both transformative and terrifying. When an avoidant falls in love, they are forced to face emotions they have spent years suppressing: longing, vulnerability, fear, and the deep desire to be known. For most of their lives, they have believed that distance is protection, that needing someone makes them weak, and that emotional control keeps them safe. But love dismantles those beliefs piece by piece. It exposes the cracks in their emotional armor and reveals the tender, unguarded parts of themselves they've tried to bury. The person they love becomes a mirror, reflecting their inner world, not just the calm surface they show, but also the chaos underneath. Through that reflection, the avoidant begins to confront parts of their psyche they have long denied. At first, this transformation feels like conflict. Love pulls them into closeness, while their old habits push them away from it. The more they care, the more their fears rise to the surface. They may feel overwhelmed by their own emotions, confused by the intensity of their attachment, and uneasy about how much power another person suddenly has over their mood. Every affectionate word, every moment of tenderness, awakens a longing they don't know how to handle. For the avoidant, this is not just about love, it's about identity. They have built their sense of self on being independent and untouchable. Real love challenges that foundation. It teaches them that strength can also exist in openness, that being seen does not always lead to pain, but the lesson is learned slowly and painfully. When an avoidant truly loves someone, they start to experience moments of emotional exposure that they can neither prevent nor control. These are moments when their guard drops without warning, a spontaneous laugh, a confession said in vulnerability, or a quiet moment of shared silence that feels strangely safe. In those moments, something inside them begins to shift. The fear of connection momentarily fades, replaced by a fragile sense of trust. It's not permanent at first. They will still retreat and protect themselves when they feel overwhelmed. But each time they return, each time they choose connection over avoidance, they take a small step toward emotional growth. Love becomes the force that challenges their internal rigidity, teaching them that intimacy does not have to mean losing themselves. This transformation also comes with pain. Growth always does. To evolve through love, the avoidant must face the emotions they've suppressed: grief from past disappointments, guilt for pushing people away, and shame for being unable to love effortlessly. The person they love often becomes both a comfort and a trigger. Through that dynamic, they begin to understand that love is not meant to be controlled but experienced. The more they resist, the more they suffer. The more they surrender, the freer they become. For perhaps the first time, they start to feel the difference between solitude and isolation. Solitude is peaceful. Isolation is defensive. Love teaches them to bridge that gap, to allow another person to share their inner world without fear of being consumed. As the avoidant learns to trust love, they begin to integrate the parts of themselves they once rejected. The emotional, sensitive, dependent aspects of their nature that they labeled as weakness start to feel human, even beautiful. They realize that their instinct to withdraw was never about disinterest but about self-preservation. This awareness marks the beginning of healing. The transformation is not dramatic but subtle, a growing comfort with affection, a softer tone in conversation, a willingness to stay during conflict instead of running. Each act of openness, no matter how small, becomes a symbol of inner change. Love does not cure the avoidant overnight, but it initiates a process of self-discovery they could never reach through solitude alone. The relationship becomes a mirror through which they learn to balance independence with intimacy. They come to see that love is not a threat to freedom but a space where both hearts can coexist without fear. What once felt impossible, closeness without losing self, becomes attainable through trust, patience, and emotional courage. In learning to love, the avoidant finally learns to meet the parts of themselves they've been avoiding all along, and through that meeting, they begin to transform into someone capable of both strength and softness. The avoidant story is not one of coldness, but of conflict, a quiet war between fear and love. When they treat you as an option, distance protects them. When they love you, that same distance begins to hurt. Every push and pull, every silence, every guarded word hides a longing they can't fully express. Real love becomes their mirror, forcing them to face the emotions they've buried and the vulnerability they've denied. Through love, they don't just learn how to connect with another person, they learn how to reconnect with themselves. Because for the avoidant, the journey isn't about finding love. It's about finally believing they deserve to stay in it.